Hey, 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 everybody, and welcome to another of what is becoming our regular occurrence. It's our AFTN YouTube post-game show, and we're going to chat in this one all about the Whitecaps' dramatic win over Chicago Fire in the early hours of this morning, a game which we were meant to be bringing you a post-game show for at 8:30. But the best laid plans and all of that this morning went out the window. We'll talk about that and a lot more. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Patter.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenhower.
And guys, the Whitecaps only been and gone and done it. We're in the knockout round.
Yeah. My prediction was half right. I predicted a draw.
Well, it was a draw at one point.
Yeah.
Now, we'll start things off. We were called out on Twitter, rightly so, for being very pessimistic. And when Stephen Egan on Sunday said that the chances of the Whitecaps getting through the group was a 2, Zach, you poo-pooed that and you said a 1.
I can't hear him.
You have to unmute yourself, Zach.
Sorry, I was just opening the comments for the video and some audio came on, so I'd show my volume up. Yeah, I mean, I think those low ratings were valid and fair based on what we saw in the first 2 games. And even though Vancouver got the result today, there's at least a little bit of fortune in it.
Well, there was, but we were pessimistic and we were wrong to be pessimistic. Well, I say we were wrong. If you watch the video back, you will notice that I never actually gave my prediction. It was going to be, I thought we had a 10 out of 10 chance of qualifying, but sadly, I never got to say that. But Quiz at Exquisite on Twitter was the lady that said that we'll be eating humble pie tonight. I'm glad to be eating humble pie. I like pie. I'd eat any kind of pie. But yeah. Also, talking of other things I like to eat, are obligatory chocolate digestives.
Be careful, we might get a copyright strike on it.
Yes, because we did get a little bit of a notice from YouTube on our Sunday show because of the videos we had playing in the background. So there'll be no videos tonight. But through the power of Lego, Zach is going to reenact the Whitecaps goals when we get to that. Forgot to tell you that was the plan, so you're just going to have to do this on the spot.
Yeah.
But let's get into it. The first burning question in all of this, should we be playing at 9 a.m. every single game?
It seemed like they were up for it. Well, should we play at 9 a.m. And then have a 90-minute thunder break or whatever, lightning break, and then play the rest of the 30 minutes or something like that? It obviously worked for them because they came out of those 30 minutes on fire. The early parts were not good, but definitely the later parts were.
Tell you who was not on fire, that was Chicago. Although they were a bit of a tire fire. We'll get into the game. We're hopefully going to make this show maybe about an hour or so, and then it's going to be up on YouTube for everyone to watch later that can't watch it live. Our extra podcast subscribers are going to get this as well in podcast form, and then I'm going to have a little bit extra for those guys as well, because we'll put in some audio from the post game, and then we'll do some audio that's coming out on Friday from the press conferences there as well. But before we delve into it, just overall, just your general thoughts on the game, when you saw the lineup, if you watched Mark DeSantis in the build up to the game, he basically told everyone, we're not going gung-ho, we're not going kamikaze style, we're going to be playing the slowly catchy monkey approach. My words, not his. And I think it was played out to perfection. There was some luck along the way, but what he wanted the team to do, they did.
I want to say one thing about the lucky and unlucky, because you mentioned that earlier that a lot of people are saying that they were lucky. Like you're getting messages from people, right?
Yeah.
The thing the thing is, if they were unlucky, they wouldn't have been called unlucky. They would have got blamed. And because now that they won the game and now they're being called lucky, it's like if you're going to blame them for being bad, give them some credit for actually winning the game, and don't say, "Oh, circumstances were circumstances of this." I know Zach is probably going to come up with that, but listen, luck is part of the game, isn't it? Isn't that you make your own luck and you create it, and if it happens, it happens. How many times have the Whitecaps missed on chances? Sorry, I'm going on a rant. I'm going off on a rant. But the game itself, I didn't realize what they were doing initially because I didn't pay too much attention to the pregame stuff. But you know, I figured that, you know, the Raposo Bear thing was they obviously maybe they didn't have the legs, the guys that were starting at the front before, and they wanted to save them for the second half. And it seemed to make sense, and it worked out perfectly. I was very surprised about the three at the back. That surprised me. I didn't think that was coming.
Yeah, as soon as they put Bear and Raposo up to chat to the media on Tuesday, I thought those two are starting and they're going to take an approach like San Jose did, which is you bring your big guns off the bench when the opposition are getting tired. That, when I saw the lineup, that looked like what was going to be the case. It proved to be the case. And I mean, I'll talk about some of the fan reaction towards the end of this, but one of the messages I got was from somebody saying, they were really lucky there. If Chicago had buried this chance or that chance, then they wouldn't have had a chance to come back into it. That's every game of football. If the opposition did this and that, then things wouldn't have played out the way that they did.
Yeah, I think they were fortunate for other reasons, but I'll maybe get to them later. I think it was like 5:32 this morning, Michael, and I texted you guys, and it was like, hey, they're playing 5-3. They're playing 5-3-2. I mean, when I saw the lineup, a couple things. One was I felt like, yeah, they're just trying to hold on, like they don't want another result like the result against Seattle. I also thought that they're playing in a way that I think MDS would like to play more often if he could, if he felt he was able to. Like he wants to play 3-5-2 or 5-3-2. Like that's his ideal in his heart, in his mind. He thinks that's the best if you can pull it off. But one of the things I said to someone, or maybe it was to you guys, or maybe it was just some other people, like one of the reasons why he could do that is because this wasn't at BC Place in front of home fans who you feel like you have to impress, right? So that first hour of that game or whatever it was not impressive football in my opinion. It was not good, but
no,
it fit the circumstances at the time. His whole game plan with Blair and Raposo was to be in the game. And if they went up, that would be great. But to be in the game so that they could have a sprint at the end. Now, the reason why I think they were a little bit fortunate, again, we can talk about this in maybe more detail later, but is because one of the in doing that, MDS went against one of the things he said before the tournament when you asked him, Michael, about the potential for thunderstorm weather delays. He talked about, we're going to have to go for it from the off and get in the lead just in case it happens. And that's where I feel they were fortunate. That game could have been called in theory because it was past the hour mark. It was past the time where a game would be complete. That's the reason why I think they were fortunate, not the missed chances by Chicago and whatnot. Because had that game been called, his plan would have backfired hugely. However, I think he deserves full credit for it working off, or it working out, for him being able to pull it off. But again, it was ugly. Like the football was ugly, and that hour and a half break or whatever it was, I think was really, really helpful for his players and for him to get them to even maximize his game plan of saying, look, we have 30 minutes or whatever it is. If we don't score 2 goals, we're going home. You have to go like gangbusters. And then he brought on, fresh legs, kind of like what San Jose did to them. And they got 1 goal kind of on the counter on the break, kind of, not fortunately, it was a great pass from Ali Adnan and all that, and a good finish. But the second one was a little bit fortunate on the counter. And
no, neither one was on the counter. One was intercepted by Gutierrez, who spun it right away back to Adnan. The other one was off a goal kick.
Was it a goal kick?
Yeah, Thomas Hassel got it to Ali Adnan, who
headed
it to Jordi Reyna.
The first one was sort of a counter.
No, I wouldn't say a counter because he was just clipping it back to him. No, I wouldn't say counter at all.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't pretty, but we've got a phrase in Scotland. You don't look at the fireplace when you're poking the fire. Just get the
Uh,
job done by
yeah,
any
no need
means
to explain.
necessary.
I agree with you that they were fortunate to survive, especially that. I know we're talking about some of the defensive plays, but that first defensive play in the second minute, when Russell Tybert stopped it off the line, that was huge.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that because that could have completely deflated the team, could have knocked. I think it would have. They had no chance after that game, after that goal, because Chicago
Yeah.
would have stepped back. Chicago was so much better defensively organized that I think they would have rode the game out on the 1-0 lead. Or at the most they would have drawn 1-1. But I think that one play saved them the game. And there were other plays down the road, especially the last 10 minutes, that defensively saved them. But that one early on, that was a big one. And we complained about nobody being on the back post for corners.
Yes.
It worked for once, right? So maybe do
Yeah.
it more often.
Well, I mean, I noticed all the corners that they had. Rusty was basically the guy that was on the line as well. So that was sensible.
Yeah.
I think if we break this down, we'll break it into 3 parts. We'll have the pre-weather break, then we'll discuss the weather break, and then we'll kind of discuss post-weather break when they got back on the pitch. So the first 63 minutes, there wasn't really a lot to write home about, but Chicago clearly knew if they got the first goal, it was probably going to be game over. And they pushed hard for it. And I think the opening 10, 15 minutes was always going to be the most difficult for the Whitecaps. And if they could hold on during that 10, 15 minutes, the confidence it would give them would spur them forward. My concern, though, was we were just not getting out of our half enough. Raposo and Bear weren't linking up great, but they weren't getting the ball much. And they haven't played a lot together to have that kind of chemistry and that partnership. I was concerned by how much we were letting Chicago have the ball. But at the same time, Chicago were doing the high press, and you thought they're going out an awful lot early on. They could really tire later when we bring the big guns on. And from watching Chicago in their first 2 games, the only 2 guys I was worried about were Beric, who had a great first game, but a quiet second game, and then Sapong, who's always dangerous. And obviously, he did play a part. But those first 63 minutes, when the weather break happened, we'll talk about the weather in a sec, but when the weather break happened and they went off, I wasn't feeling confident that we could come back and get those 2 goals at that point because we hadn't shown enough to do that. But we had just made those subs and brought on that spark. But all that was going through my mind was, damn it. Now, when we needed Chicago to be tired, they're going to get this time to rest. Didn't work out that way, but I mean, did you? What were you feeling like when they went off?
Well, I felt like that spark you're talking about, the subs and everything. I felt like that's because of the break, that spark was going to go out too, and not only that, like you said, Chicago was going to get their rest. But then it was funny to hear after the game that Chicago was complaining about how they were hampered in. They were all, they weren't able to spread out, and that actually made it worse for them that they weren't able to stretch out and everything. I couldn't keep track of the Chicago subs. I don't. The only one I remember is Sapong. Other than that, I don't remember this.
He only made
subs came.
3 subs, and he was asked after the match, "Why did you only make 3 subs?" And he said, "Well, the subs we made were to add an attacking spark, so there was no one else he felt he could bring on that would get them the goal that they needed. So he kept what he had on the pitch." Now, that's a dangerous thing, as we saw in the first game with MDS. If you don't make your subs and the guys are getting tired, it can go either way. Those are the folk that's listened to this in the extra podcast. You'll get to hear Raphael Wiki and what he said. But he was very gracious in defeat, and he didn't want to make excuses. But you could tell he was really struggling to get his head round what had just happened out there and just how different his team looked when they got back on the pitch. But it was all in their hands, and they'd had the chances to put the game to bed. As just as that great Greek oracle Robot said once, fine lines.
Yeah, I mean, going into the weather delay, I even though the new players had come on, the spark hadn't been there, and it felt like the game was just going to carry on the way it had. The other thing is professional footballers do not like to stop playing for an extended period of time like that. It's not good for their muscles, not good for their joints, all that kind of stuff. And so I know it's the same for both teams, but you did not see it being it did not seem like it was going to be something that was going to help Vancouver in the end. I think the motivational side of things really did Vancouver. And yeah, if you're following on YouTube, please do share your thoughts, your questions.
Yeah, but it's a quiet chat tonight. The first two of these, it's been like crazy chat. But
it's late and it's a weekday, so and the game was like 12 hours ago.
Yeah,
it feels like it was like
up watching
days ago.
Yeah,
it feels like
it does. I mean, how many hours is that we've been up now? I don't know about you guys. I did manage to get about an hour and a half nap this afternoon, so at least I had that.
Yeah, 0 for me.
Yeah, 0 for me. It's been a long day.
I like my afternoon naps. Well, that's why we'll keep this shortish, or as short as we can. So the weather break. Now, you touched on it, Zach. The longer this went on, I had concerns they weren't coming back. Even though they had the whole day to play the rest of the game, I don't know what the rules were for how long is classed as a reasonable amount of time. Now, I tweeted out some video that we took way back in 2009 of the Whitecaps, Puerto Rico Islanders and the USL days when there was a lightning break. And that went on for something like 3 or 4 hours. So I was hopeful, but this is MLS. You could think Chicago would be pushing, no, we need to get this game called. And then MDS would be like, no, you're not calling the game. And all that I kept thinking was 4 minutes earlier, and the result wouldn't have stood. They would have had to have replayed it, if nothing else. But going back to what MDS had said about he wanted to be leading every game by the hour mark, they must have seen the forecast and known that Thunder was in the area, surely. So again, that was then a little bit, well, why would you maybe not have tried to go for it early on? But I mean, it doesn't matter. It all worked out. And MDS said afterwards, because I asked him, what was it like in the locker room? What did you say to the guys during that break? And he said initially, he said nothing. He wanted them to relax. He wanted them to chill. He got them to play music. And then after they were kind of like chilled a bit and kind of the adrenaline had gone, that's when he went in, he took the board, he talked tactics, he told them to go for it. I mean, it's interesting he's saying that, and Rafa's like, oh, the guys were too cramped and it wasn't very good and stuff like that. It's two very different approaches on how to deal with it.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were in their regular dressing room. It seemed like they were just in a place right by the field or something like that. Or like, I guess they have these things built in Orlando because they get these lightning strikes so often. But
it's going to be a pokey little. I mean, if you see the pictures of the locker rooms, they're like lower league Scotland, England locker rooms that the big teams in the FA Cups never want to go to. So they're not great locker rooms.
But don't these guys didn't they get changed right in their hotel or something like that, or come straight to the game? They don't even have locker rooms around the field.
Some of the teams were actually changing on the pitch. But that was for COVID concerns because they were a bit concerned that the locker rooms might not be fully clean. But no, the teams arrive in their tracksuit and then they get changed in the locker rooms.
So I think like again, I wasn't sure what was going to come out of that after that, that rain break or lightning break. It seemed like it was going to get called off because we saw I showed you the weather report. This is that lightning strikes all the way through, but I guess it cleared up all of a sudden. It looked cleared up at that point. I was actually at that point, I was like, maybe we could just have it called off and we could just get a result for at least one result for the tournament, and we'd be better off than Atlanta because Atlanta got 0 results for the tournament.
But it got a point.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe just call it off. Let's not even come back. But eventually they did come back, and wow, what a comeback it was!
It was a different team.
Yeah, I messaged you guys and said this would be like the most Whitecaps way for this tournament to end.
And the season, I think you said.
Yeah, and 2010, 2020 to be over. And then, Michael, you said, I hate to be the guy who goes to tell MDS the game's over.
Yeah. I don't know how we would have reacted to that. During the break, when I knew it was going on and they said, 9:05, I thought, right, this is my chance. I'll get Penny out for a quick walk. And she just had surgery a couple of days ago. She's all good, but she's quite slow with the walking. And I'm like, come on, I've got to get back for the game. And then I just opened the door and the telly was still on. just as they were celebrating the goal going in, I was like, oh my God, we've scored. So I never got to see the goal. I had to put it back right away. And then the second one, I injured myself cheering. That's how unfit I am. I actually pulled something in my side by cheering so loudly.
Yeah, it was a good thing that
It's healthy digestive diet.
I would have woken people up in the house if the game had been at that hour, like my kids or something like that. Because I did cheer really loudly, especially for the second one. First one, I was just in shock. That right there, Arena turning to the keeper. The first one, it was like Jay Duke right there. I was just in shock that I got the goal. The second one, it was more like with Michael, just pleased and overjoyed.
I look like I've had a rough night there.
So those were I was totally surprised on the first one, so I barely reacted. And the second one, like, you're going through. And obviously, I think you guys mentioned that it was the most dangerous lead, 2-0 lead at that time. But considering they had to win by 2, actually 3-0 would have been a more dangerous lead. So it was a perfect lead for them, 2-0 in this case.
Yeah, I mean,
one thing we haven't talked about, and I can't remember where this is in the game. It's kind of partially brought up here by Raphael in the comments, is because it was actually a big turning point, is when, as much as the 5-3-2 had helped them, I think, stay solid when they weren't playing good football at the beginning. What was the minute when Jasser Kamiri went out? Because that was
it was just before it was in the first half. It was in the first half.
42-ish.
Yeah, the homie came on just before the first half ended.
Yeah, you don't like to say this, but it was addition by subtraction.
Exactly, yeah.
And they felt stronger. I mean, he hadn't had a bad game. Just to say that he hadn't had a bad game today, but he hasn't been great so far. And I wasn't overly sad that he went off in that regard. I was sad that he's done his knee again, because the guy is just having terrible time with injuries here.
Can I ask you guys something? What is the major difference between Cornelius and Kamiri? Like, like people are so much in love with Kamiri. Yeah, Cornelius seems to be the guy that gets the job. Yeah, he has a moment here and there where he messes up, but for the most part, he's did such a good job on clearing the ball out of the box, following his man, being rhythm. It's just unbelievable.
At least 3 reasons that come to mind really quickly.
Oh, okay. I thought this was our new faction. Instead of the 4 horsemen, it's like the 3 amigos.
No, well, I mean, one is their size. Kamiri's a little bit bigger. Cornelius
seems to get higher.
Cornelius is also, yeah, that's true. Cornelius is also left-footed. But one of the things that a number of people have pointed out in the last week or so is that they feel Kamiri's playing because they've just had to pay more for him and probably pay him more. And so it's kind of like, hey, this is the guy who gets paid more, has more potential, whatever, or is seemingly better in the moment for whatever reason by the coaching staff, so he's got to play. But I agree. Like, I would be playing Derek Cornelius ahead of any of the center backs. I liked what happened with Ranko, and I thought Ranko and DC together really did well, and not just because the results turned out the way they would have liked it to.
And I think Ranko, not only did he have a good game defensively, he controlled the ball in the middle of that pitch too, sometimes on the back line, and he was able to push the ball forward up to the guys.
Yeah, and again, I feel bad for Kamiri and his knee too, and just getting hurt and all that's happened to him since Vancouver bought him, because there's been some things beyond his control that's hindered his recovery and his return, and him being able to play for Vancouver. But right now, with the people who are, if even Jesser was healthy, with those who are healthy, I would definitely. I don't know how you don't play Ranko and Cornelius.
Yeah,
to me, it seems like Kamiri is a training guy, and Cornelius is a gamer. Like, he plays well in games, and Kamiri plays well in training, and they keep judging on training, and so the training doesn't result to the pitch, the action. So I think maybe that's what's going on here.
You've got to remember, he's played 2 good games against the LA Galaxy. He dealt with Zlatan fine, but Andy Rose was beside him. He was good in that game down in LA in the win. But he does play well at training. He goes in hard. He's a lot more physical than Cornelius as well. So I don't know if that's something that MDS
and that's fair, Michael. But also, Zlatan isn't super mobile, and also Zlatan's not in the league. And I don't know. I think CJ Sapong, for example, is more mobile, and even Beric is a little bit more mobile. I mean, Beric had that one he skied today that was on the ground, but I like Jasser. Yeah, you hope he recovers and he's okay and stuff, but he is not impressed in an overall sense in, I think, his time.
How do you guys feel the midfield did today?
Someone here says GM says, I thought Tybert was just terrific and was man of the match in my opinion.
I didn't notice the midfield that much, but then I don't know if that's a bad or not because they were just doing what they had to do. But it's still like I have been so disappointed in this tournament with Inbom Wang. He's just, when you've got all your top guys out, you need a guy like him to really stamp on the game and put his mark in it and show what he can do, and he hasn't done it.
I noticed he's had he had flashes today. Defensive, there was a couple of defensive tackles he made that were good, except for the one where he completely dove past the ball. But he had and then he had a couple of nice moves in the midfield. But the problem with him is they rely on him to be consistent, and he's not showing that consistency. And the fact that they lose Owosu like halfway or 60 minutes through the game, that hurts him because Owusu's by far the best midfielder on the pitch right now for them.
I thought he not a bad game. And the only thing is there was a couple of tackles that he was maybe a bit off with. His timing maybe seemed a bit off, but that's understandable because he hasn't played much. And of course he got injured in that first game. But I mean, he's the guy that is key for the midfield just now. I mean, maybe Inbom will step up when he gets to the knockout stage. Now, Raphael Eisencraft, who was the gentleman that asked about Cornelius, and he was an upgrade. He also has a couple of questions here, which we'll just look at. One of them is about Inbom, who says he feels that he needs to step up, and he does. But going back defensively, he's wondering, well, he says Cornelius, he looks even better when he plays for the national team. And you have to wonder if that's because he's got better players around him. He looked good when he played with Henry last year, but just now putting him in with Kamiri, they both struggled because I think Derek's still a young guy, and I think a lot of folk maybe forget how young he is, but he had to kind of carry Kamiri through that first game. And then it was kind of surprising in some regards that it was him that dropped out the team. There's clearly something, though, that MDS hasn't liked about his game that has had him ruled out until now. But he does look better with the national team, and he does look better once he has better players around him.
And Cornelius, not only is he young overall in age, but he's also young in playing the center back role. Because remember, he did switch over from, I think, winger or striker, or something. I can't remember what position.
Yeah, he used to be a striker. Yeah.
So he's done that, and I agree with you there that him playing with Kamiri, I think, is two guys that are still learning their game a little bit.
Yeah.
When he plays with a guy like Godoy, or like you said, Henry, or even Ranko, even though Ranko's, I think, younger than him, possibly, or they're the similar age. But Ranko has a much mature game because he's played so many minutes with his team in Europe, that Slovenian team. So he's got a more of a mature game. So even though he's played, there's a similar age, he's more of a veteran than Cornelius is.
Yeah, Ranko's a 99 born, I think I read in the notes this morning. Now, Raphael also wants to know what's the timeline on Godoy and Bikel's injuries. They're both out for the tournament, although Godoy is still being listed as day-to-day. I don't think they risk him at this stage, but if Kamiri is out, which you have to feel he is going to be out, they've got no cover unless you throw Patrick Metcalf in. He can do that at a push if need be. He might be the backup centre-back if anyone goes down. But we'll come to the starting 11 for Sunday in a little bit. But you're looking that it's going to be Cornelius that's starting that beside Ranko. I'm not upset by that. I think that's a good partnership.
Yeah, no, I think so. If I can get back to the midfield for a moment. I feel like I agree with what Sam says here, Sam Porter, that, Owusu is the standout from the midfield by far in this tournament.
Oh, for sure.
I think Russell worked hard and did some things. We talked about the clearance off the line. He did a few other things, but going forward, I didn't feel he was super effective. And that brings me to Inbom Wom, because that's been one of the biggest things. You talk about consistency, Steve. The only thing he's been consistent at in this tournament is being really poor in the final third. He hasn't been creative. He hasn't really contributed. He's made wrong decisions over when to shoot and when to pass. Early, I think it was early. Yeah, it was earlier on in the game today. There was some nice sort of possession and buildup from Vancouver, and they gave it to Inbom, like on the inside right channel on the top of the box, and he chose to take a shot with his left foot under so much cover that I think it wasn't even blocked. He just skied it. And it was
and then there was a pass that he made. Raposo was running into the channel, and he made a pass behind him instead of leading him into the pass. But again, he's miscasted that role. We talked about it. He's not supposed to be up that far up the pitch or to that.
He should be a 6 or an 8.
Yeah, they need that 10 very desperately. And I know Mark DeSantos doesn't want to play a 10 or something like that in his system. But if you could find a 10 that can play in the system, that would be ideal. Because 3 8s, I'd rather have a 6. I know they equal each other, but I'd rather have a 6 8 and a 10 rather than 3 8s.
Yeah, and that's been like the MLS problem, is always been the midfield and the lack of a true creator kind of person who the game runs through, aside from, I guess you could say, Pedro Morales, right?
Yeah.
And it just feels like they're not willing to invest in that type of player anymore.
Well, let's look at the creative midfield presence that helped to win this game. Young lad, Ali Adnan, moves into that midfield role. I liked it. I liked Guti at left back, Adnan on the left wing. Adnan looked like a monster out there. He was just superb. The ball that he played for Reina for the first goal was great, and like hat tip to Reina. He was cool there, rounding the goalkeeper. He could have like panicked and tried to shoot or tried to lob him, and who knows what would have happened then, but he took it round. The keeper caught him as well, so he could easily have gone down, but he's like, no, I'm staying on my feet, buried it. And the second goal, again, Adnan, little flick on, Reina, beautiful chest down, the control that Reina showed there, and the turn, and the homie finish through the keeper's legs. Nice one.
No, I agree with that. I think Adnan also, not only is he strong going forward, and he's more reliable defensively the further away he is from the net, so that's a good thing as well. If you listen back again to that second goal, when Hassal makes the goal kick, you will hear somebody say, wait for the second, or get ready for the second, or something like that, and that's Mark DeSantos. And DeSantos is yelling them to get that second ball off that initial header, and that's what Reina got, and Reina was able to get homie in there. So I think assist to Mark DeSantos there on that goal as well.
I heard MDS. He shouted seconds quite a lot in the last.
Well, they worked on that one
game, So I mean, let's come to what some feel is a controversial moment. I think it's pretty clear cut, and I'm not saying this with any blue-colored tinted glasses on. The Sapong handball for the goal that was disallowed, to me, it clearly hit his hand. But there's
not
a
only
video.
Hit his hand, it hit his arms too. But went around his arms.
He carried it in. But the post thing that MLS do on Twitter and the Whitecaps retweeted it. I watched it just before we did the show, and they're like, "Oh, it wasn't clear and obvious to overturn that." It hit his hand. I don't know how much clearer and obvious it could have been. If it was reverse and it was the Whitecaps guy, I'd be like, "Yep, it hit his arm. He brought it in with his arm."
The thing is, you can complain that you don't like the rule, but it is the rule. Like we've said so many times, it's the law of the game, so you have to abide by that. If it could be intentional or not intentional if it's a defensive player, but if it's an offensive player and they're attacking player and they're put in the net using their hand, Thierry Henry goal rule, or should I say law, it's an automatic no goal, and it doesn't make a difference in any aspect. I think even in the buildup to the goal, if it hits the player's hand, it's automatically ruled no goal. So. It's a law of the game. It's no goal. And it was pretty clear. I think it was pretty clear. There was a number of times when you could see it touching his hand. And I don't even think it touched any of the Whitecaps players' hands. It only touched Sapong's hands.
Yeah, there was no question about it. The only way that was gonna count is if MLS and VAR really had it up for the Whitecaps.
No, I wanted to make a comment. It was, for once they actually the rules actually worked in the Whitecaps' favor.
Yeah,
The VAR actually worked.
It was a moment, like when it happened, I was like, I don't believe this. They've done so well to get into it. And I didn't fancy them to come back after that. Thomas Hassel was asked after the game what he was thinking. And he said, when it went in, I just thought we're going to go up and get another one here. Obviously, it didn't come to that. But I want to just talk about one last moment from the game that was crucial. Jake Nerwinski was out on his feet, it felt. He was on fumes for the last 10, 15 minutes of the game. He put in a hell of a shift. But that last-ditch tackle he did in stoppage time to knock the ball away, I can't remember who it was from.
It was a double tackle. It was a double tackle. Yeah. Tackle and a clearance. And then and then followed up, but that's what I'm talking about. Inbom Wang's little tackle to knock it off to cause a throw in. That was a little nice flash of the moment for him as well defensively. Yeah. But definitely Jake's initial tackle, very close to being, if he had done it at a different angle or something like that, or a little late, it could have easily been a penalty as well. Speaking of that, he came very close when he did the high kick. That could have been a penalty.
Yeah, I tell you, I was really thinking in the closing minutes, Jake's going to give a penalty up here because he was getting closer and closer. Chicago were flopping everywhere though, so I don't think that helped their cause at all. Collier, I don't know if he's didn't have rain boots on or whatever, but any time he got the chance to hit the deck, he was down there.
Two things though. One is, I think, Collier was bad, but he was not as bad as Dahomey in this game. I mean, Dahomey did well to score his goal, but he was shockingly bad when it came to
simulation. He got completely taken out.
Yeah, Dahomey was so bad.
Every time he went down, every time.
No, but the one in the center of the pitch too, when he actually got his ankle,
when you watch it, he does get caught and he's whipped through the air.
I think a case of the boy who cried wolf. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the case. He was so bad in doing flopping that the legitimate calls didn't get called.
I think, Michael, the more controversial point than the Sapong handball was what you mentioned about Jake. There was a lot of people from Chicago, I think, on Twitter and whatever, really complaining that felt that should have been a penalty.
Which one? The
face? The high foot.
The high.
Oh. Yeah. And then there was that. There was that time. I think a lot of people were complaining about when Sapong was taken down by Renko, even though it was Sapong who initiated the thing. But a lot of people were saying calling that it should have been a penalty as well.
Maybe that's the one
they didn't see the initial.
But when you watch that back, you see Sapong take him
out. Exactly. They cleared him out.
Yeah, that was.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Can I address one of these questions, Michael?
Yeah, we're gonna get to some. So go for it.
Sam Porter has one. This is an oldie but a goodie. So you've heard me tell this story before. So just bear with me. Sam Porter says, for what it's worth, Darlington Nagbe doesn't fit that midfield description? ? I've seen people talk about this recently. I forget where. Darlington Nagbe was, of course, available in Vancouver's first super draft, I think they used to call it. And there was
a super.
Yeah, he was super. So Vancouver was picking first, Portland was picking second as the expansion teams that year. And there was this whole narrative of Darlington doesn't want to go to Vancouver because he doesn't want to live in Canada because he wants to play for the U.S. men's national team. The truth behind that story is that was being just put out by people in Portland because they wanted him in Portland. Yeah. He was willing to come to Vancouver.
Yeah.
The reason he did not come to Vancouver is because Tater Torderson wanted Omar Salgado. Salgado had trained with the Caps in the USL. They tried to actually get him in their team before MLS so that they didn't have to draft him and that he could just be a part of their team going in.
Yeah, I didn't know.
They could have got both.
They didn't allow, MLS stepped in and didn't allow them or whatever. So Tater really liked him, really saw big potential in him, thought that he could turn him into a quality striker. And so Tater wanted him. And there's only a few, I think there's maybe not as many positives as people will think negatives when it comes to one of Steve's favorite a guy named Tommy Sowen. Tommy Sowen wanted to bring in Darlington Nagbe, and it was Tater who put his foot down and said, I'm the coach. I want Omar Salgado. We're taking
But-
Omar Salgado.
But you know what? Honestly, if you look back on it, you can look at hindsight every way and figure out what was the right call. The right call was to get Omar Salgado. He was very talented. He was tall. He was that lanky striker that everybody looks for, the number 9. So it was kind of the right call. And the fact that they have trained with him, they knew everything about him. The only issue with Omar Salgado is that fact that he had an attitude. And they weren't able to rein that attitude in, and then obviously the injuries then picked up. So that's the only thing about that. That made the difference.
When you talk to his teammates from that era, especially those who were more like senior leaders in the team, that's what they would tell you. Yeah, the injury prone thing was an issue, but the bigger thing was maybe he wasn't as teachable, or he wasn't as, not that he wasn't professional in how he handled himself, but he wasn't as committed to being maybe to trying to take his game to the next level as a professional athlete, the way he had when he was younger, because there was a lot of players who were trying to invest into him and teach him and encourage him and spur him on, and none of it
Terry
worked.
Dunfield tried at halftime in one game.
Yeah. I will name the people I'm talking about, but there were a number of people who tried to do a lot for him.
The thing is,
all's well that ends well.
We're going off a tangent, but one more thing about Omar. He thought, like you're saying, he didn't want to take his game to the next level. That's because he thought his game was already at the next level.
Yeah,
and that was the big issue with him.
That's a very.
Didn't he get a fight in train? Yeah, he got some fight with Train now. I remember.
Yeah.
Let's talk about somebody that did take his game to the next level, and that is young Thomas Hasal, who I thought when he came on, we talked about this in the last show against Seattle, he showed great poise, composure. He was very vocal. He had the big double save that would have given him so much confidence. Now, I've known Thomas for a couple of years, chatted to him a few times. We've seen him go through the residency, and he's one of those keepers that's confident. And MDS described him after the game as like a guy that nothing phases him. Things just like roll off him. And he had a couple of moments today, little bit, maybe shaky. That one where he came flying out of the box and missed a header. No idea what was going through his head there, but it was offside anyway, so that was all good. But I thought, like, he looks smaller, but he was still quite commanding in the box against the big guys.
He's bigger than Kripo.
Yeah, he's bigger than me, because when I interview him, I still have to look up. So that's most folk. That's why I like talking to Nathan. I can look down on Nathan. It's all good. But obviously, look down height-wise, not any other way. Not saying I'm superior if Nathan is watching this. But he won't be watching this. It's
he's watching, Michael.
Maybe not on demand. Yeah. Although he has trouble sleeping. So anyway, enough about his personal life. With Hasal, I thought he did really well. And we'll come to a question from the chat in a sec about backups on Sunday and stuff. The confidence that he's got, we look like we've got another good keeper there. Kripo is obviously, though, the face of this team going forward. It's another situation where we've got a talented young Canadian keeper that you don't just want to be sitting twiddling his thumbs at the end of it. Yeah. Yeah. Max is twiddling his thumbs just now. But it's great for him. MDS was keen to point out after the game, not to hype him up, not to build him up as this, next big thing. I just let him casually develop, and the club are looking at the best way to develop him. I still think him going out on loan somewhere after this to continue now what he's shown is going to be the best thing for him. But I have total confidence in him now going into this KC game.
Yeah, I think he's the bugs are kind of out of it. I think it was probably
Teixeira left at the end of last season.
Yeah, the fact that he got those 30 minutes or 20 minutes at the end of the Seattle game, I think helped in this game. If he come like brand new in this game, it might have been different. Even if they lose in the game, it's really good that he got this clean sheet in his first start. I thought it was fantastic. And the last thing about the goalkeeper position, though, today, as somebody else in another chat learned that the thumbs are a very important thing to goalkeepers. So that's another thing that was good about learning about the goalkeeper.
I mean, I'm really, really happy for him. Clean sheet, huge. This meaningful victory for the team and all that. Yeah, he had these couple moments. You know, Michael, you referenced one of them. It was like he was trying to be. I told you guys, message you guys. It looked like he watched a lot of Manuel Neuer, and he was trying to be like a Manuel Neuer with that diving header. And then he also there was that throw in that almost Chicago brought right back and scored on.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, in the end, he got the job done. His mistakes were cleaned up and it didn't impact the result. And so yeah, you gotta say that bodes well for him. But I agree with you guys in terms of when he's potentially back down the pecking order, a loan spell somewhere where he's going to be the starter would be very ideal.
I think it's a must. It's something they have to look at. But I mean, we have learned, as Steve pointed out, thumbs. There's three people in particular. Thumbs are so important to: goalkeepers, hitchhikers, and the guy from Finger Bobs in the 1970s. Children's TV show from the UK. It's okay, Zach. He wasn't one of the folk caught up in Operation U-Tree. But it was a great little show. There were lots of things with thumbs. Anyway, that's a pretty irrelevant point. But talking of goalkeepers, we have a question in the chat from GM, who I don't know if that's Bob Lenarduzzi. Oh, he's not GM anymore. Anyway, the question he has now is about Sirois and the situation. Is he now cup tied to us, or will we go back to the Impact? Well, he didn't play, so he's technically not cup tied. Now, MDS officially said afterwards they're not sure what's happening. They don't think they'll have him on Sunday. I'd be very surprised if they don't. I think MLS will make sure that something happens that they don't, because if the Caps were to bounce out of the tournament because of something of their doing, and let's get to this now, this farcical thing that cropped up after we'd recorded the show, where there was two pool goalkeepers, but one of them was with Nashville. So when Nashville left, he was offered to clubs, including Vancouver, and everyone's like, no, you're okay. Because why would you take the guy that's been Nashville when they've all gone home with COVID? And then you had Charlie Lyon, who was on the bench for SKC. So this is kind of where the cap tied thing, I guess, is what GM is meaning coming in. Because he was on the bench for them, and because the Whitecaps are a Canadian club in an American league, they would have had to have got an international transfer certificate for him to have left Sporting Kansas City to go to the Whitecaps. And they couldn't do that because there was no open transfer window. But the league owned all the players. You're playing in the same league. Absolutely farcical.
Yeah, and it's not even like is it like a FIFA sanctioned tournament? Even is it or I'm not sure.
Well,
maybe it is.
I think everything is. Yeah.
Okay, so that's weird. But the thing is, why was he a backup for SKC or was he just on the bench?
He was on the bench because Melia had got sent off and Sanchez was starting, and they didn't get another guy. And the way that Sanchez has been playing, and we're going to come to that, and sadly Melia is going to be back for our game, but Mr. Porn Moustache Sanchez, I'd have loved him in goal for KC because he has not been good at all. I can't look at him without thinking of porn. Maybe that's just me.
Other things remind me of porn, not the guy's mustache.
Is it these ears? Happy days.
Oh, let's move on.
Funnily enough, it's like I'm channeling both Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck tonight because I've got the Mickey Mouse ears on and I'm not wearing pants.
Yeah.
In terms of the whole goalkeeper thing, yeah, like you figure that there should be some kind of way to work around this in terms of you're a league with teams from both countries, like, and how this has only become an issue now is kind of surprising. But it just, again, it's like it feels so MLS, right? Like, what could be more MLS than this?
Well, I talked earlier about the video that they released after the game where they were talking about the handball and stuff, amongst other things. I can't for the life of me remember the name of the woman that presents it, but she was so condescending. She was like, it basically came across, I'm paraphrasing, but only very slightly. Oh, all the Canadian teams have made it through. Isn't that great for our friends up north? It's like, oh, the little guys have made it through, kind of ignoring the fact of what TFC have done the last couple of years. It was like crazy.
But do you expect anything different from them?
Yes and no, but I mean, if you look at the teams that have bowed out. I wrote these down. You've got Atlanta's out, the Galaxy's out, Red Bulls are out, DC United's out, Houston, Colorado, Chicago, Miami. No big surprises there, but there's a couple of big hitters out. And I mean, we'll come to a quick look at the round of 16. I'm going to delve into a bit more in the extra podcast. But one thing I want to say just before we get to the round of 16, MDS, when I spoke to him before the tournament, said he had two big targets. One was to get through into the knockout stage, then take it from there. And two was to finish the group stages still in a playoff position. Well, they're not. They've fallen out of the playoff positions by a point, but they're just a point behind it. So not too bad. But I think Mark, all things considered, can take a lot from this, what he's seen so far. And I know it's a false environment and he's missing all these guys. I was proud of the team today, the way they fought, the way they got the result, what it meant to them. And just, I felt they deserved it with everything that they'd been through. Some of the fan reaction during the game, after the game, I got some DMs from people. I got some tweets from people as well. Had a look at the Facebook page, and there was comments like, why? Because I put my article up last night talking about how the Whitecaps were struggling to get from the finishing a game, having your dinner at 1:30 a.m. on Monday morning, and then 80 hours later, you're on the pitch playing a football match again, having to adjust your whole body clock. And there's some comments like, well, I got up this morning, no problem, and I'm wide awake. And it's like, okay, I think you're kind of missing the point of getting up and watching a game and actually having to play 90 minutes in that heat and humidity. But okay. And then there was folk like, this is terrible. Why are they not going for it? They need to score. And MDS talked about that on Tuesday. It's like, there's going to be folk watching going in the first 15 minutes. Why are they not scoring? We know we need to score, but this is our game plan. And it's something that really pisses me off with that. It's a small section of the fan base, but it's a large vocal minority online. Don't really want to use front office terminology of vocal minority, but it is. Nothing pleases them. If you cannot be happy as a Whitecaps fan after watching your team go through everything they've gone through and still get through, even though it wasn't pretty, I don't know what's going to please you. Seriously.
No, it makes sense. Like, that's why at the beginning of the show, I was mentioning that it was just surprising. Like, if you're going to give somebody flack for, when they've been unlucky, and there was a number of games that were not this season, but last season, where they were unlucky. VAR calls went against them and everything like that. But if you're going to slag them off that, even if they've been lucky, they got the result. They did what they needed to do. Those finishes and those buildup of those plays, those weren't easy. They could have easily gone the bad in the wrong way. So you have to look at it that they got the result. They actually advanced when nobody was giving them a chance. People are giving them 2 out of 10 chances, 1 out of 10.
Not me, 10 out of 10, I would have said if I'd said that.
But that's what it was. So, like, who would expect him? Like, the one thing I want to bring up, and I hope we don't get copyright strike from TSN, but Christian Jack at halftime was just absolutely slagging the Whitecaps. And then at the end of the game, like, was praising, like, he did a complete turnaround. Like even if you want to,
you couldn't slag them after that.
No, you know, but even if you, but the thing is, when you're slagging a team like the Whitecaps, you also have to let people know that they are missing a lot of players, and he never mentioned that at all. Whereas at the end of the game, then he started praising him and giving him, oh, this and that, because I guess maybe at halftime he didn't think they were going to play another game, so he didn't worry about people tuning in for the next game. But at the end of the game, he knew they needed people coming in for the next game, so he decided to praise him.
To be fair, they were bad in the first half.
But they were bad.
Really
but they were
bad.
Still in it.
Yeah, they were still in it. That's the thing.
And it was clearly the game plan.
There were two goals. There were two.
I'm not talking about that they didn't. He shouldn't have criticized them. I'm talking about the level of criticism was kind of overboard.
It was over the top.
Yeah,
I definitely feel that. But we're through. The Disney dream is still alive.
Hey, what trophy are they giving after this tournament?
It's in the shape of the coronavirus. It's
It's some
a
take
lot of money
home
spent on
Like
it.
this?
Yeah,
It's kind of
take
like
home
that.
tests. Some take home tests for your family.
yeah. Everyone goes home with a free testing kit if they advance into the knockout stage. Of course, the ultimate prize. You don't need a trophy. You've got a Champions League spot on the line here. But MDS, I'm being facetious about that. I actually genuinely mean that. I think that is a big prize. And there's also $1 million in money to get handed out. I don't know if it's Disney dollars or Garber bucks, but it's one of those two things anyway. I think they're kind of the same.
They have to spend it before they leave the resort.
Yeah. There's not any use to anyone once you're outside of the normal world, or in the normal world. Let's look at the round of 16. As I said, I'll delve into it in a bit more detail in the extra podcast that we're bringing out. But tonight was exciting because we didn't know if the Whitecaps were going to end up playing KC or TFC. I was obviously torn. Play KFC. Oh, that's a combination. We don't want to do that.
Clay FC.
That was a genuine
KFC.
mistake.
KFC tastes good, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a merger. When they've reached all the expansion teams and Toronto can't have a team in Canada anymore, it's going to become Sporting Kansas City, Toronto FC, and it'll just be KFC. I think that's what they'll go with. Bunch of chickens, if you ask me, but there we go. Anyway, who did you want? Did you want KC or TFC? KC means more Johnny Russell.
I was okay with either one, as long as they got in. I wasn't even thinking about that at that point. But yeah, it was either one. I honestly don't think they have much of a chance against either one. Maybe 4 out of 10 or 3 out of 10 or something like that. But
that's good.
Wait. We need to talk about this whole out of 10 stuff. Michael, you can't say 10 out of 10 because I believe you go back, listen to the tape. Did you not predict a 1-1 scoreline?
No, that was me.
What was your scoreline, Michael? It was 1-1.
I may have said 2-0 or 2-1 or 1-0. I had them beat.
Yeah. So
thanks, Zach.
Your actual prediction number was 0 out of 10 for the way. I think TSN would have liked it for it to have been Toronto. That way they could have played up an all-Canadian aspect.
That was why I was wanting it not to be as well, because it would be god awful. Listen to Caldwell trying to call a TFC.
Oh yeah, that's a very
game.
good point. Very good point.
I think Kansas City's the easier opponent for them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's easy for them. I agree with Steve.
Yeah.
3-4 out of 10. It would take just like in this game where they did something kind of unexpected. It would take a pretty big turn of events for them to advance any further in the tournament, in my opinion.
And the thing is, Sporting, while they've, did they win the group? I can't remember if they won the group, but they haven't looked very solid at any point. Like they've had their ups and downs in this tournament as well.
Yeah, we've got a message in the chat from Bonya Outman, who says, "I'm making notes just so you're aware. So that everything we say,
that could be Tim's wife, maybe.
I think it is. Yes. So KC, 3 games. They started with a 2-1 loss against Minnesota, and they threw that one away with the late collapse. Obviously, setting off everything like that as well. Then they beat Colorado 3-2.
And then one of the most controversial games.
Yeah. And then they beat RSL the other night, 2-0. Russell got them off to a perfect start, 46 seconds in, which was only the 4th fastest goal in KC history. And I was like, wow. Like, considering how slow we start games so many times over the years, it's like, that's just incredible. So altogether, they've scored 6 goals and they've let in 4. They definitely are suspect at the back. So how do Vancouver approach this? We'll come to starting. Actually, let's look at the starting 11 now, because that was also one of the questions in the chat. Just trying to find out who it was that asked us that. But Sam Porter, thoughts on the starting 11? So obviously Sal is in goal. What formation do you guys want to see?
I would say 4-3-3.
Because KC do tend to go 4-3-3 or 4-3-1-2 sometimes as well, a little bit. But Yeah,
I'd
that'd be
like
a
to
good
see,
counter.
because you have to go 4 at the back because the fact that Kamiri probably won't be available, and they
Yeah.
probably don't want to risk that. So 4 at the back, you got Renko, Cornelius in the middle, Nowitzki, and Gutierrez on the left.
Yes, that is
And
what
then
I was going to say.
same midfield because you really have no choice there either. Tybert, Owosu, and Inbaum.
Wow.
And then Adnan on the left. You could either go Milinkovic or Dahomey on the right, and then striker, obviously Reina. The only reason I think you could even go Raposo on the right if you want to. One of those three. The reason why I would say not Dahomey is because I'd like to bring him on at just after halftime and see what kind of his speed would go against a tired and worn down SKC team that might be like a little bit worn down. So I'd like to see him go up against them like the way he did today in today's game. So I'd like to save him. The thing about Milinkovic, what minute did he come in? Because he looks spent, even though he came in late in the game.
It was round about the 60 minute mark. I can actually get it up here. I'm just
Like he looked more spent. He looked more tired than Nowitzki did. He could barely walk around by the end of the game. So
he went to ground easy also.
He came on the 62nd minute, so just before the break. Yeah.
I think you guys are right in terms of 4-3-3 because you can't see them going back to like a 4-4-2, not just because they got so outplayed against Seattle, but if they did something like that, they would get so overrun in the midfield because they'd only have 2 central players versus likely Kansas City's 3 in the midfield, and they would just be overrun and overmatched, and they'd be losing. It'd be a losing battle all night in the midfield. So yeah, I think it will be something like a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 or whatever, however you want to call that, in attack or versus defense or whatever. I think the bigger thing for me won't be the formation. The bigger thing will be the approach. The approach.
Yeah.
Does he try and do something like he did in this game, where he plays like Blair and Raposo at the beginning, and rests players like Milinkovic or Dahomey and even potentially Jordi Reina for the end of the match. Now, I think one of the things that was unique about the Chicago game was he was able to start with like 5 at the back, and the changes that they made, even though they were partially enforced by Kamiri going out, I think really is one of the things that enabled them to create the chances that led to their goals. And really it was something it looked like, at least on those plays, that Chicago wasn't able to adapt to. So they might not have that big change, going from a 5 at the back to, 4-3-3 or whatever. But I think from a player, the player side of things, I think they still have potential to play this card where, hey, we want to wear you down, and we want to hang in there, hang in the game, hang tough, some might say, until later in the game where they can nick a goal or 2. The dangerous thing of doing that, the counter to that, is of course you have to be able to stay with Kansas City for the first hour plus of the game, which it feels hard like they'll be able to do it no matter what formation they go with.
Well, if I just want to break down the brackets and everything, the one that's really intriguing to me is San Jose, Real Salt Lake, Columbus, and Minnesota. That foursome is going to be interesting to see who comes out of there. The top part, I think anybody can come out of there, even like Vancouver, even the next round, Philadelphia, New England, they might have battered each other by the time that they might not be ready to go.
I think it's a good bracket for them.
Yeah, because the bottom one, you got Orlando and then Seattle, LAFC. Seattle and LAFC have to play each other. That's going to be a wild first round too. I think that was
so close to being Seattle and Portland as well.
Yeah. So that'd be interesting to see what especially the second round matchups are really going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it as well, it's Minnesota are a team that you kind of want to avoid as well, and they're in the other side of the bracket as well with Columbus, and that's the tough side. We are in the best side, and I know folk might be like, you just managed to just get through the game today. This is cup knockout football. It goes to penalty kicks if it's tied after the 90 minutes as well. Sam Porter makes a good point in the chat. If they can combine the counter-attack prowess from the San Jose game with the better defensive performance from today against Chicago, he feels they've got a chance. I do as well. He also points out as well, which I forgot, Milinkovic got a knock and he got a bit limp. He was limping a bit injured after
was that what happened? Oh, maybe that.
Yeah.
I didn't notice the knock at all, so I'm not sure when that happened.
I think I would start Dahomey, but I see where you're coming from about it would be good to have him as an impact. They talked today during the game about how pissed off he was that he wasn't in the starting lineup. So you kind of want to get that hunger and you want to get that like, oh, I'm going to go out and show what I can do.
The bracket that's behind Steve, though, has the Whitecaps playing the Minnesota quadrant next.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention too. They're in the Minnesota half.
They are, because not according to the bracket that I'm looking at here.
Well, I got this from Wikipedia, so maybe they're wrong on there because whoever wants updated. But yeah, whatever the case is, at least the foursome to get to the semifinal is not too bad. It's not that strong, but it's probably the weakest out of the other brackets.
I'm just going back into the MLS site. Yeah, they've got Minnesota and Columbus in one side, RSL and the Quakes, LA and the Sounders, and Montreal and Orlando.
Well, they're probably more accurate than the Wikipedia then. But that's fine.
No. Oh, wait a minute.
You're reading it wrong?
I don't know, because you guys do your brackets weird here. Oh, no, I'm reading it right. Yeah, so it is.
I'm looking at the MLS website. It's how Michael's talking about it.
No,
so
yeah. I've got the brackets wrong before because there was a weird way of doing it, and it wasn't the way that I was used to from back home. But now this is the way that I'm used to. So
I didn't want to. I didn't want to get it from the MLS site because I was worried you're going to get a copyright strike if we used any pictures from them. So
I know that they don't want anyone else to make money. Can't monetize anything.
And
we don't have ads in our videos anyway.
And can we quickly mention about how we got MLS employees of their site who tweet more about the Seattle Kraken today than they tweeted about the Chicago-Vancouver game. And now I totally understand that it is Vancouver, but you do have Chicago, which is a pretty big market, and you don't tweet about that, and you're tweeting more about Seattle Kraken, NHL team. So it's you wonder why MLS doesn't get very much coverage when their own people don't tweet anything else.
You just got to ignore those voices. Just stop listening to them. Stop following them.
I was just wanted to see what their reaction was to the games, to the actual game, and I got nothing for most of them. Because I don't follow them, so I was searching them in order to see what they said about it, and then they got nothing. Taylor Tolan is the only person that mentioned the game at all.
When I was doing the watch along for the first game and they said, oh, Matt Doyle's going to be coming on the show in a few minutes. And I said, he hates Vancouver. And then
you said that on the watch along?
Yeah, they quickly moved on from that. They didn't mention that at all. Actually, that was kind of when I disappeared from the thing for 10 minutes. That was my break to get something to drink and pee or whatever. It's like,
is that when they replaced you with Toss?
Yeah, I didn't get to. Well, actually, I got to speak to Toss towards the end. Steve Nash was meant to be on it, and he never appeared.
He was hanging tough with what?
That is pretty much all I think we'll talk about in this part. We'll get our predictions. I don't know if I'm just giddy with lack of sleep or that these ears are a bit too tight in my head. I actually fancy us to do this in a 2-1 win.
I'm less confident on this one, and I'm going to say 3-1 loss.
Oh, that was my score.
Okay, fine. I'll go 2-1 loss. I'll let you know the 3-1 loss.
I was going to say...
No, I'll go 2-1. I'll go 2-1.
Okay. I was going to say Kansas City goes up by 2, Vancouver gets 1, and then KC hits them on the counter for a third.
So whoever's wrong shaves their pubes live in the next show?
Sure. As long as MLS is okay with it.
Yeah, that might get us a few YouTube strikes as well. I don't know. Or a niche market of subscribers. We'll see. So the game on Sunday, it kicks off at 8 p.m. Pacific time. We're back to the night time. The good thing about it, though, is Casey's got an extra day of recovery, but they were playing a morning game as well. So at least there is that. Do you guys want to do a post-game show for that? It might not start till 10:30 or 11. But would
Sure.
you guys be around?
That's like a normal Sunday for us.
That's a normal
Yeah.
Sunday for us. Yeah, exactly. So
That's true.
and
We
don't have to drive home after the game, after the show either. So it's good.
Yeah. So let's do this in our PJs.
Yeah. Or normal clothes.
Yeah. Oh, I never showed what I was wearing tonight. So I'm wearing a bitter
that
and
one.
twisted old-fashioned football fan t-shirt.
You've worn that
Even
before,
though-
right?
Yeah, today I'm not bitter and twisted. I'm actually, it's a feeling I'm not used to. It's kind of excitement. It's happiness.
Thanks for not showing us your pants. No.
There's a show I watch in the UK with Ramesh Ranganathan called The Ranganation, and they had to do it all by Zoom for this series because of COVID and stuff. So he has basically a work group workshop panel, and they've all got fun names like TikTok Star or Wheeler Dealer. But he was playing a game on it, which was Pants or No Pants, and the celebrity guests had to guess which one of the 12 or 15 people weren't wearing pants. So we could try that.
We could.
Obviously, it'll be me.
Are you talking about pants as in the UK version of pants, or are you talking about
Trousers?
Trousers. Okay, gotcha.
Trousers.
Because UK version of pants is
I'm not
different,
wearing
right?
pants right now because I'm wearing shorts, but
I just love how you keep disappearing into the forest.
Yeah, I know. Floating. You've had a floating head once in a while in this show.
Yeah. Who doesn't want that? That's a good time for us to wrap up, I think. Just before we go, let everyone know where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at Whitecaps Beat.
for me it's at Zachary AM.
You can find me checking out Mouse Ears Are Us. Great little special site. You can also find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Eve. I like how it's like she's bitten your head and you've got a bandage on. Anyway, you can find me online on AFTN Canada. You can find us on YouTube, but you know that if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, because then you'll know when we go live. Helps with all the YouTube algorithms and all that nonsense that I hear in all these other shows.
Algorithms and
yeah, stuff like that. And thank you to everyone that's watched us live tonight. I am really enjoying doing these. Hopefully there will be a season to come. The word is there's going to be between 16 and 20 games starting the second or third week of August. Not going to happen.
Not going to happen, man.
Although someone else did say that they had heard that the Canadian teams would just play each other in a number of games, which seems the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. But we'll see. It's MLS. I think it might have heard the Canadian Championship was going to be on, and it was just that, but who knows?
Yeah, the Canadian Championship is going to happen for sure, right? Has that been confirmed or not yet?
Well, MDS is pretty confident it will. The CPL are still struggling to nail down a place to have it.
You should pay attention. There should be some CPL news very shortly.
Do you have to stay up for it? Because I don't think I can.
No, I don't think you have to stay up for it.
Okay. Well, on that note,
look for something this week.
On that note, thanks to everyone for listening. As I said, it'll be out as an extra podcast. We'll have some extra in there as well. Thanks, guys, for joining me. I know it's been a long day, especially for you two, because you actually work, and I'm just a layabout just now. Tough life. Anyway, good luck, everyone, and on the Caps. Bye.